Make it exist first, make it better later is excellent advice for content creators. However, we often think of it as writers do. Write a shitty first draft, that's the advice circulating, and then make it better later because you can type it out and delete it. But if you post a video out there, it's permanent for the world to see. How do you make it better later? This is exactly what I want to talk about today because there's nuance there, and I've had a few realizations along the way of my on and off content creator journey in the last 2 years. That the first draft is a failed final. It's not a failed final draft, though they serve two different purposes. And welcome to Nas from Desigo. With writing, it's pretty obvious. You write a first draft, you have to structure it if it's going to go out as an essay. You have to make sure there's a beginning, middle, and end. The first draft, the purpose of the first draft is one thought leads to another. The more I write, the more I get to experience my childhood all over again, even the good parts, sometimes the bad parts. I'm pleasantly surprised. That's why I'm falling in love with writing all over again, because the more I write, the more honest I am. The one sentence that I wrote leads to another. I never know where it's going. So the purpose of the first draft is to excavate every single memory you have that you might have forgotten. A memory that you have never thought of in 20 years, that you thought of for the first time after it happened today while writing. Purpose of a first draft is to excavate and to exist. Creatives often think that the first draft is a failed final. It's not a failed final draft, though. They serve two different purposes. Video making, or with putting your thoughts out there in a video essay format, which is something that I'm doing right now. Things are a little different though, because with a written word, you can edit it, delete it. If you delete it, no one will ever know. But if I say my thought out there, it's kind of out there, right? It's permanent. And a lot of us are scared when we first start content. I know I was scared because I thought I had to sound perfect. I got over that. Then I thought, okay, my imperfect thoughts are permanent out there on the internet for everyone to see. What did I just do? Am I stupid? What did I just do? It was a form of commitment for me. It was scary because I have this idea, but I know that when I'm 30 or when I'm 45 and when I'm smarter and wiser, this idea will be different. This idea will be fleshed out in a richer way. So why am I executing it now? I might as well not do it, and I might as well execute when I'm 500 years old and I know all the secrets of the universe, right? The purpose of the first draft is to exist is an oversimplification. The purpose of a first draft is to excavate. Now I'm thinking about it differently. If it's only to excavate, I'll keep writing. It's a stream of consciousness. In fact, I'll not stop writing until I am exhausted, I am spent an hour later. With talking and with video essays, the concept is a little similar except that it's more permanent. The scary part for me was, oh shit, it feels permanent. So my half-baked version of this idea is out there and that's it. But this is what I've realized in the last 2 years. When an idea comes to us, and ideas, let's say 4 or 5 ideas, are always going to circulate in our mind throughout our lives. But who you are at 22 in terms of identity, or what your understanding of love is at 22, but that's just how it is. It's half-baked to you if you're 30 now and talking about it or reading about it. When I was 22, I wrote my future husband a letter, and in that I explained my concept and understanding of love. When I was 24, I wrote another essay in my notes app. And the essay was about my understanding of love had evolved, and I wrote about how love is choice, because that was what was circulating on Pinterest. Love is not a feeling, love is a choice. And I didn't know what I was talking about, but I wrote it. Now my understanding of love is a little more nuanced because I'm married, and I know different kinds of love. I know love for my husband, I know love for my pup, and my future kids who don't exist yet, I know different kinds of love. So because I wrote it down at 22, my brain didn't have to hold on to that version of me anymore. It was out there. The rudimentary primitive understanding, which is what we often have the first time around for an idea, needs to be out there in some way. If you write it in your notes app, that is one version of the idea existing. For me, what I experienced was, if I publish a video and I make the setting public, not private, public for the internet, my brain is especially like, oh shit, I never want to see it again. I'm never going to click on that video. I'm never going to Google myself or watch what I see, what I posted. It's out there. That is gone forever. That version of the idea is done, which means the open loop effect, the Zeigarnik effect, your brain doesn't have to hold on to it anymore. It is done. Your brain trusts to let it go. And now either something else can brew, or you can just live life, and this idea, if it is that precious to you, will come back to you like it's a circular staircase. As someone who has had this on and off content creation journey, I promise you it will come back to you again and again. And if you have executed, provided you have executed that first shitty idea, the new version of it will come to you. If you don't execute that first shitty idea, the newer versions won't come to you. As a creative, I thought that committing means I have to do it right, I have to do it fully. If I waited long enough to be perfect, the concept sounds jumbled up, because my primitive understanding of the concept is something my brain is holding on to, which is trying to fit somewhere in the essay or the spoken word. But the newer version is also, and now they are clashing, because what I thought at 25 versus what I thought now at 29 are two very different things. These are two very different stages of life. They should not clash. They should exist independently. Your versions of ideas are going to be different throughout your life, and each version's job is to exist independently in whatever form you choose. If you say you are not someone who wants to create content, that's fine. You write in your notes app just to make sense of your life and your thoughts, but then they exist. Maybe that notes app version is only for you to read. Maybe you write emails to yourself. Maybe you write letters to your future you. Maybe you write diary entries. Maybe you like writing on a typewriter. I got the $60 typewriter in a thrift store once, and when I write on that typewriter, I'm different, because I can't make a lot of mistakes and I have to think slower. I write differently than when I'm typing frantically on my laptop, and that's just, it's beautiful, because the two different mediums can bring out two different versions of you. But the job of both of these versions is to exist, and the more you execute it, particularly if you want to execute it as a creative out there, don't be scared is it's an oversimplification of things, but how not to be scared is what I'm trying to tell you. Because if you don't, and if you say you'll do it when you're perfect, or when you look better, or when your ideas are more fleshed out or sound proper, then when they are in a 3-part structure, that 3-part structure will never come, because you didn't let that first draft exist. You cannot cut in line with your own versions of thoughts. They aren't meant to be cut in line with, because they are not linear. They are just there. They are supposed to exist like air molecules in air. Like air molecules isn't, in one line. They are just kind of randomly existing, and together they make a collection of, air that you breathe. Okay? Now I'll give you a little example of how ideas can take years to develop. This one is complex, but it kind of relates to my content creation journey so far. So it's a nice example. I want to share that with you. Because I've been, making these video essays, and this format is not like a podcast kind of format, like a tech pro advice giving format. This is more like sharing my journey in a video format, video essay, where rambling is it's a feature, not a bug. And I thought, okay, I ramble. I sometimes take ages to get to the point. But the more I edited these videos, because I'm the one editing them, in the last 20 videos, I see something and it annoys me. I noticed that I'm repeating myself a lot. What is this? Why do I not trust the audience's ability to get it the first time? My audience is smart. You are smart. If someone's listening to me, it's enough already. I made the point the first time. I said it how it needed to be said. I don't need to say it 5 more times in this video format. It's annoying. And then I asked myself, I wanted to explain to myself like I'm my own mom. Like, okay, no, but you don't understand. I have to do that. Why? I have to. Why? I sat with that thought. It's because, and there's a lot of reasons to it. It goes back to my childhood. I was always asked to elaborate my thoughts as a child. I don't like it, Mom. Why don't you like it? Because I don't know what to say. So I'm making things up. Because it's darker and it looks oily. I want to wash my hair. Why? Because it's getting oily. Why do you want to wash your hair if it's getting oily? Because it's flat. It doesn't look good. I don't feel good. No, that's not enough reason. She kept asking me why, to the point that I had to say something which didn't make sense, because you don't like it is a complete feeling on its own. Like, it doesn't need to be explained. I only understand that now. But back then I didn't. So I had to explain, and then my feelings could be negotiated with. It was a tactic of control and negotiation along with a lot of other things. But now I know that. That is why my instinct is to elaborate. That is why I'm repeating myself in my videos, which is not nice. So now the sentence forms in my head. No was the beginning of a sentence for me, not the end of one. Now that sentence forms in my mind. I realized few years ago, half of this concept formed for me. I comprehended it. when the Me Too movement was going on, a lot of women realized that if a creepy guy comes up to you and says something, and he wants your number or something, you don't have to explain to him that you have a boyfriend. You don't have to explain to him that you like a guy. You don't have to do that unless you feel absolutely unsafe. You can just say no. Like in theory, in an ideal world, you just say no to the guy and he should go away. I was like, oh, I don't need to explain to him that I don't like him, that I'm not interested because I like another guy. Nice. I mean, that was empowering for me, and it took me a while to apply that in practice, but that was revolutionary. But I thought that that's just where it ended. Now, few years later, after creating content, I see this pattern in some of my earlier videos where I'm annoyed that I'm repeating myself so much and I'm meandering. Why don't I get to the point quicker? It's because I feel the need to explain every single thought in my head because I was required to. And when I laid all my thoughts bare, my mom would pick and choose and say, none of this is acceptable, everything is wrong. And a lot more profanity and a lot of other things. We don't need to get into that. It's a bit of a downer. But that's where it comes from. Now, several years later, this idea is fully formed, and I can write an essay about it by excavating some of these stories that come to me when I frantically type on my keyboard. And I can talk about this as a whole idea. Sometimes ideas can take that long to form. But back then, I wasn't a content creator back then, now I am. But back then I wrote in my notes app, I used to write these diary entries, and I wrote about this concept of no being a complete sentence is something I recently learned, and that's nice. I can just say no to guys, but with my primitive brain at the time, when I was 23, 24, I thought that saying no was especially with the context of men, because men are always like weird about it and they don't take no for an answer. That's a different conversation. I thought it ended there. Now that I've lived life, I know this is a universal concept that applies to every single thing and every single facet of life. That's how this idea has evolved for me over the last few years. It's just an example. The point is to tell you that insights rarely arrive all at once. They arrive one after the other. You have to let them have existed, and only then the next one will arrive. In fact, now as almost like a 29-year-old, I read that letter that I wrote at 22 to my future husband. It's well written. I will always stand by it because I had sort of prepared it in my mind for a while, for a few weeks, and then I wrote it down because I was 22. I wanted to preserve my understanding of 22, and I wanted to preserve that since childhood I have thought of who my future husband would be, and I miss him. I don't know him, but I miss him, and I wanted to write it all down and my version of what I think love is. And now that I look at it, there are certain things that I don't agree with it. That was primitive, but I don't frown at it. I don't look down upon it because 22-year-old me didn't know better. She did what she could. We're here now. 29-year-old me is doing what she could. I'm doing what I know best. And as long as I don't hurt anyone, right? For content creators, specifically for people who want to tell stories and write video essays or speak in video essays about their life, which is quite a popular format. It's very intimate and it's very connection based, people finding you and forming a community out of it. The point of this format is to tell the truth and be honest about who you are. You can of course choose to be careful and choose what you want to share for privacy reasons, but being honest about your feelings, I've realized, is a universal thing. There's always someone who relates to it, and they need your first draft to exist, maybe even more than they need your perfect draft to exist, because we all think in first drafts, we all think in primitive versions of a concept. We just don't feel brave enough to post it out there because we are social creatures. We need validation from our tribe. If we did something stupid, right, this old brain of ours, this old hardware, it literally meant that we wouldn't survive, or we would be thrown out of the pack if we didn't comply, or if we weren't accepted. We want to be accepted. So you're not broken for wanting that. It just so happens that we all need it so desperately. We all need to hear each other's primitive versions of thoughts so badly that doing it is far less painful than letting it ruminate and being all jumbled up, so that there is no clarity from one point to another, and that you can't see your evolution, you can't see how this idea for you progressed through the ages. That's not very nice. And for me, I, especially as I'm getting older, and maybe it's all just FOMO for me, but I want to hold on to it so badly. Sometimes I also accept that an idea needs more time to marinate. It's very obvious sometimes that an idea is half formed because it doesn't go anywhere. There is no realization, there is no change that occurred in this story that I'm trying to tell. Then it's pretty obvious to me, and I let them stay. And writers do this all the time. They might revisit an idea years later because they lived life, something happened, and they realized it. Like that example I gave you about no, and me wanting to elaborate things. Getting to that level of knowing, did something change? Did my insight change? Did the way I look at things change? That comes from doing it. So I'm not going to tell you don't be scared on this channel. That's not what I try to do. I try to tell you, I try to break it down to show you how you can't be, how you shouldn't be scared. I don't tell you to be consistent. I show you how I did it. The most chaotic person ever learned the concept, or starting to understand the concept of discipline or consistency. This is what we do on our channel. If you enjoy this video, thanks. If well, good. You should. The point is that you should feel like there is a nice takeaway and that you learned something and that you felt understood. That's the point of my videos. So this is where I'm going to end my thoughts today. I will let you be. And I am having a very bad day creativity wise. This is something I wrote down when I was in my overflow state, and I came back to it today. I don't know why. It my brain sort of pricked me. Like, if you're gonna execute something today, if you're gonna talk about something, might as well talk about this. This is a fully formed idea. You don't want it to rot. It's been a few weeks. I wrote it down, everything that I realized. What I wrote down versus what I'm saying is slightly different, by the way. Hence proof, right? Every single version of what we say, we could take the same thing, and for every single day of our lives we could try to talk about it. It's going to be slightly different. That is beautiful. That's what I'm doing today. Like, trying to prove my own point, trying to take my own advice. If you were here, thank you for listening. See you next time. Bye.